Guys, it's Malcolm from Automotive Addicts. Today I'm bringing you the 2020 Cadillac CT4. Now the Cadillac CT4 actually replaces the ATS. Many of you might remember the ATS. It was built off the General Motors Alpha platform. This one uses a second generation of the Alpha platform, which is a rear-wheel drive vehicle. Still remains a rear-wheel drive vehicle, which I think is a really good thing for Cadillac to do. It is a compact luxury sports sedan, if you will technically classify it. I think it looks pretty good from the outside. There are a few things I like about the car and a few things that I don't like, and I'll go over them real quickly through the walk around we'll do. It is a pretty sharp looking car. Like I said, rear wheel drive. It does only come with 4-cylinder engines, unfortunately, but there is a special thing about these 4 cylinders. The one in this one is the middle of the row. It's a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine. Actually, it's taken from the Chevrolet Silverado truck. If you ever get the 4-cylinder truck, that's what the engine choice for the 4-cylinder is a 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. That engine has 310 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque in this particular car. Now, as you look around, the rear end kind of looks a little funny to me in some ways, especially with this cut line right here for the trunk. You'll notice it's almost like a big smiley face. But that's something I don't like about the design of it. Otherwise, the tail lights are typical Cadillac stuff, the exhaust pipes down here. The overall design I like over the new CT5. Cadillac CT5 actually replaced the CTS. Now, the CT4, you'll notice the pillar lines, the roof line actually comes down. It all looks good. Now, if you go back and look at pictures of the CT5, it has this like blacked out lump here that just doesn't fit in place, in my opinion. But from an overall design perspective, I think it's a good looking vehicle. You got this neat grille up here up front. You notice the little grille, the parts right here actually look like a Cadillac emblem somewhat. You have these nice daytime running LED lights, LED headlights. Now, as we go under the hood of the new Cadillac CT4, like I said, this is the 2.7 liter engine, 4-cylinder turbo. Notice the turbo over here. Now, the base version of this car gets a 2.0 liter turbocharged engine, which you'll find in other vehicles from the Cadillac brand. That one only has 237 horsepower. Now, getting to some more confusing parts about the CT4, there is a CT4V, which is a more performance-oriented vehicle versus this one. It actually uses the same engine, a version of this engine, which has slightly more power. In the CT4V, you have 325 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. And of course, it is rear-wheel drive. You can get all-wheel drive in this vehicle in any trim level. All right, we're inside the 2020 Cadillac CT4. I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. The trim of my test vehicle is the premium luxury trim. The latest gauge cluster. You have actually separated LCD screens here in the middle. You have one for your information. It's several information screens you can scroll through. And up top you have this fixed screen. It's also somewhat configurable. It reads speed limit signs through a camera mounted behind the rear view mirror. And then moving over to Cadillac's latest infotainment system, you'll notice it is a pretty clear screen, somewhat high resolution. It does have this neat home screen. It does seem somewhat dated in a sense. The most recent General Motors infotainment systems, they all seem to look very similar. Cadillac doesn't do anything special to theirs, but overall the system is very responsive, very user-friendly. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android integration. You move down here to you got your physical climate controls and heated and ventilated seats up front. They actually have automatic heated and ventilated seats here. They automatically turn on depending on the temperature of the vehicle inside. And you have this nice, somewhat of an accent stitching throughout. It's a soft touch dashboard up here. But what I kind of ding this interior for is it does have a somewhat of a cheap feeling through some of the hard plastics in here. These are like, kind of like a rubberized plastic to the touch. But overall, there's quite a few hard plastics. But you do have these aluminum Bose stereo speaker grills. What's interesting about the wireless phone charger down here is it actually has a cooling vent up here. But the cooling vent keeps your phone and this charging pad cool.
which I find in a lot of other vehicles, these wireless phone charging pads get pretty hot along with your phone battery. And you move down here to Cadillac's latest shifter. You find this shifter in all the new Cadillac vehicles. Even the new Escalade has the same shifter and these identical physical controls for your infotainment system and your volume knob. And down here you move to your drive modes, auto hold system, and the annoying start-stop system of the vehicle. One interesting thing is the volume controls on the car. There are 3 of them. It's kind of a redundant thing. You have your volume control over here on your steering wheel. You have a physical volume knob up here, and you have this volume knob here. They're only like maybe a foot or 2 apart. I don't know if it's an annoyance for people or a benefit. And lastly, the other one of the highlighted things about the CT4 is the drive modes. You have this new My Mode, which is a customizable mode. You can customize that mode through the system here. If you go into My Mode, you can actually customize the engine sound, the steering effort, and your brake response. Moving to the back of the car, this is another thing that I ding the CT4 for, is the small back seat. This seat is just ridiculously small back here. The passenger seat is adjusted all the way back. You notice there's just a little small space. But otherwise you have these vents, climate control vents back here, and a single 12-volt charging port. And moving back here to the trunk release right there. It is a good sized trunk back here. It goes down, it's extra deep for a compact car like this. All right, setting off in the 2020 Cadillac CT4. This, like I said, this is the premium luxury trim, which kind of falls in the middle of the road for the CT4. In replacing the ATS, the CT4 fits in really well. It does feel a little bit smaller than I remember what the ATS was. Using those new 4-cylinder engines, well, mainly the 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, I think the performance takes a different route. It's not, I don't think it's any worse than it was, but it's certainly not leaps and bounds better, especially when you move to the CT4V, which doesn't even compete with the ATS-V, what that was, which leaves Cadillac some room for another performance variant, not just the CT4V, but something actually above that, maybe using a twin turbo V6 or something like that. But what I do like about the car is the way it drives. It handles well, it doesn't bounce around too much, and it's not overly firm. The suspension on here has fixed dampers. They're not adaptive dampers. When you move to the CT4V, you get adaptive dampers. Even the steering is pretty sharp from what I've observed in my driving time with the car. And another benefit is this 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It puts out a good deal of power. The 350 pound-feet of torque really kicks it in the rear. And that's one thing I'll do up here. I'll do a 0 to 60 for you here in a second, but that is one thing this car has going for it, is the 0 to 60 time, which is about 5 seconds flat, believe it or not. Rear-wheel drive, it does well. You can get optional all-wheel drive in the car. 0 to 60 is probably around the same. But I do love that this engine doesn't have much turbo lag. Out of the hole, it just goes. Another good thing about the engine, it's paired up with a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's the same 10-speed automatic unit that Ford and General Motors developed together. It does pretty well in this car. The 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine, the turbocharged, gets the 10-speed automatic. If you opt for the base version of the car with the 2.0 liter turbocharged engine, you get only an 8-speed automatic transmission. The braking, it seems to be a trade-off with the very sensitive brake pedal. I barely touched the brake pedal and I'm already braking pretty hard. The cabin's pretty quiet. It does a good job of isolating you from the road for the most part. And we'll do a 0 to 60 up here. And we'll go. That's 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. Now, one thing you might notice picking up on the microphone is the engine sound. You do get that buzzing sound, and it's kind of a harsh sound in the car from that 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. That's something I noticed in the Silverado as well, with this virtually the same engine in that truck. Not necessarily a high-pitched buzz, it's more of like a growling buzz. But for a luxury car, it just doesn't fit in place. And also, making that sound even worse is the My Mode you can switch to, and you can make the sound even louder through the settings that I just showed you a little while ago. You know, here I'll step on the gas for you can see if you can hear that sound of the engine. Yeah, I guess Cadillac wanted to make it a little more sporty as far as the sound. You get some induction noise. I don't know if there's maybe some artificial noise being fed into the cabin through the speakers. But either way, it just sounds kind of harsh. It doesn't sound good. The performance of the car, I guess, makes up for that. But hopefully soon I can get my hands on the CT4V and see how that does with its, 15 more horsepower it has. But it does have 380 pound-feet of torque in its CT4V, which is probably an even better benefit for this platform. And I think the weight of the car is around 3,600 pounds. So it's not necessarily heavy and it's not exactly light. It's kind of in between the road. But overall, I like the car, which brings me to some more numbers. The fuel consumption is pretty good in these cars. I get about 30 miles to the gallon on the highway. In the city, 20 miles per gallon combined, 24 for this particular car. The all-wheel drive version drops that just slightly. The number that counts is the price. That's where things kind of get a little weird for me personally. This one, as configured, is a little over $45,000. Sorry, I almost called it ATS. The CT4 base model starts at $33,000. So that's pretty much all I have for you for the 2020 Cadillac CT4. Smash that thumbs up button, come back often, and make sure you subscribe. And until then, I will catch you guys on the next one.